so hot in here. I need to take off my jersey. On one hand, Doughnuts. On the other hand, Lost in Overtime. Put that together, and you have a very confusing night. Now, I did write things down, which means I could have done this video from my car. But, put in the comments why I wouldn't have wanted to film this video in my car. Wrong answers only. And, yes, I do think it's blatantly obvious why I didn't want to record this in my car. If you haven't been able to tell yet, you're gonna. So, this was the first game in which I actually went to the season ticket holder meeting before the game. I got to actually see the GM / head coach of the Norfolk Admirals talk before the game, that being Jeff Carr. And, yeah, it was kind of interesting. I really am hot. It was very interesting listening to him kind of talk about his expectations for the game, his expectations for his players. The ECHL, and I think almost any minor league sport team, is kind of a mixed bag when you're a fan of them, because if a player is really, really good, they're probably not going to end up remaining in the ECHL very long. And if they suck butt, they might get traded. They might or they might end up not being re-signed to the ECHL. Or they remain on the team, and you just have to suck it up and accept that your team is always going to have kind of mediocre players. And he was talking about how Kanata, one of the goalies for the Norfolk Admirals, is obviously like trying to join a foreign to me as an American hockey league, probably the Swedish hockey league, which, you know, if he can do, congratulations, but you know, that just goes to show, if you're a really good player, you might have aspirations outside of the minor leagues. And, but generally he's pretty affable, Jeff Carr, and he did not have the nicest things in the world to say about the refs and the people that manage Norfolk Scope. So I won't repeat those things here, but yeah, wasn't the nicest things in the world to say. But completely understandable. And somebody talked about how, I'm going to talk about the game in a second, but somebody talked about before the game that error that I talked about, the Maine Mariners logo being on the screen for like the first 3 minutes of the game on Wednesday. So he said he didn't notice it. I believe him, because it's not really his thing. That's the Scope's thing to manage. But anyways, fun guy. So the game overall was very heated, and I don't mean in play, I mean like there were a lot of fights, there were a lot of penalties. At one point, two of the players, one of the Railers and one of the Admirals, ended up getting taken off the ice for the end of the second period, because, spoiler alert, it was getting so heated that people were like literally knocking down refs. So it's pretty bad. Anyways, period 1 starts at 2 minutes and 36 seconds. One of the Railers gets a tripping penalty, and the Admirals go into power play. At 4 minutes and 33 seconds, the Admirals, I believe it was Musser, although I can't find the stats on the website, because if it's not a goal, at 4 minutes and 33 seconds, Musser gets a goal. Nice. In the first quarter of the first period, getting a goal, pretty good start, except, obviously the Railers ask for a review. They get it, and the goal is taken back. Now, because it was taken back, it was considered not a goal, I'm not 100% sure that Musa is the one who got the would have been a goal. And number two, I have no idea why it was not considered a goal. Throughout this entire game, I had 4 like college-aged bros sitting behind me being loud as shit. And by the second period, there was somebody talking to them who was sitting to my left who was being even louder. So a lot of the calls made by the refs, I could not hear because they were being so loud and not talking about the game, talking about some random nonsense. So, a little frustrated. But at 5 minutes and 15 seconds, the Railers get a penalty. This is for too many men on the ice. They, for a while actually, had 6 skaters on the ice, just rolling around, and people like in the crowd were like saying like, "There's too many men. What are you talking about? Like, look at it. It's very obvious that the Railers have 6 skaters on the ice." And eventually the refs figured it out, and the Railers got a penalty. They managed to kill it off. The Railers get another penalty at 9 minutes 4 seconds, this time for slashing. So up to this point, the Railers have gotten 3 penalties. Admiral has gotten none. And Reifenberger of the Admirals gets a goal at 13 minutes 15 seconds. And this time it actually stays on the board. So, pretty nice. The game is now 0-1. And at 15 minutes 56 seconds. Now keep in mind there have been a lot of like pushing and shoving and yelling and screaming and a little bit of fighting back and forth. But there's a big brawl between like a bunch of players on the ice. Like there's this group here, this group here, this group here. And at some point, Percy of the Railers, in what must have been like an angry like blank mind move, like brought the ref to the ice, which is something I don't think I've ever seen in person. A ref get knocked down by one of the players to the ice. It's pretty ballsy, and I'm pretty sure he gets a penalty. There's definitely some penalties going around back and forth, but eventually they managed to get things sorted out. And during this brawl, number 13, an Admirals player gets an unsportsmanship penalty. This is the second game in a row that an unsportsmanlike penalty has been awarded, which, as I said in the last game, is kind of a BS penalty. It's the kind of penalty you give when you want to give a penalty, but they didn't actually do anything wrong, so you're just saying, unsportsmanlike. They yelled a little bit too much, yeah, because in hockey, there's no such thing as yelling. At 16:22, Caparud of the Railers gets a goal, and the game's now tied, and it remains 1-1 going into the first intermission. So, that's fun. At least this time it was tied with 1-1 instead of being tied 0-0 like on Wednesday. So, positive steps. Second period, 4 minutes and 15 seconds into the second period. John Nuzzi, the goalie in net tonight for the Admirals, ends up getting pushed into the net with how like crazy the Railers were trying to get that puck in, and they managed to get a goalie interference penalty. So I don't even know how many penalties I would be up to this point. I'm thinking like 5 or 6 probably of the night. It was getting a little bit ridiculous. But then again, there was a lot of fighting tonight, so maybe it was justified. But either way, 25 of the Railers gets a penalty for goalie interference. And Shin, one of the new players for the Admirals, he's South Korean. there was a little bit of talk before the game by Jeff Carr about how it sounds like Shin doesn't speak English that well, and so Carr is kind of having to learn South Korean in order to try to talk to Shin. It sounds like a very interesting dynamic, but he gets his first goal as a Norfolk Admiral at 15 minutes 19 seconds, and he manages to make the Admirals go ahead by 1. And that's going to be a theme for tonight, folks. And that seems to be a theme for the Admirals in general this week. Never being up or behind by more than 1. It makes for a very tense game throughout because you're constantly like, okay, are they going to hold the lead? No, they're going to lose it, and now it's tied, and oh, actually, they're behind by 1, and oh, actually, it's tied, and oh, they're actually ahead by 1, and oh, no, it's tied. Now they're behind by 1. It's a mess. But Crowder of the Railers at 11 minutes 45 seconds gets a hooking penalty. At 12 minutes 26 seconds, one of the Admirals gets a holding penalty. I did not write down which Admiral. And at 13 minutes 24 seconds, so I think you're still on the 4-on-4. Yeah, the math would work out that you're still on the 4-on-4. Log run of the Railers gets a goal, tying up the game. As I said, it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. 2-2. And 14 minutes and 23 seconds, Bakanov of the Railers gets a goal. So that's about a minute later, making the game 3-2. This is the first time in this game that the Admirals are behind. And at 15 minutes 10 seconds, one of the Admirals, did not write down which one. Actually, I think it might have been Timofeyev. He gets an unsportsmanship or unsportsmanlike penalty. So that's 2 tonight, 3 so far this week. Or I say so far. I think this is the last game until nope, there's a game again on Sunday. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens again on Sunday. So gosh, yeah, I hate that. I hate that penalty. It's probably my least favorite penalty. Like, if something that they're doing is that bad, make it an actual, like, rule that they cannot do the thing that they're doing. Having these umbrella terms for penalties is just a mess. And it leads to people like me feeling like there's some nonsense going on. The Admirals kill off the penalty, and at 19 minutes and 5 seconds, there is again a fight, and Azamund gets escorted off the ice. I actually wasn't sure for a while, because 2 players, one of the Railers and Azamund of the Admirals, got escorted off the ice, and I wasn't sure for a while if they were ejected from the game, or if they just were being escorted off the ice. I guess that's all it was, because Azamund came back for the third period. But going into the second intermission, the game was 3-2 with the Railers ahead. And yeah, pretty tense game. So because of that fight and everything that happened before the second intermission, the first 2 minutes of period 3 were essentially a 4-on-3. I say essentially the 2 minutes, not essentially. It was 4-on-3. It was pretty interesting. It's not something you see a lot, where one team is lost 2 of their players to a penalty, and the other one is lost 1 to a penalty. The Admirals managed to kill off both penalties. Obviously, the Railers do as well. And you have all 5 people on the ice, and it's great. At 3 minutes and 10 seconds, Golder of the Admirals gets a goal, tying up the game 3-3. At this point, we were all thinking the same thing. Are they going to get to 5? Are they going to get those donuts? They had this offer again tonight. I wish I could find the ticket. I took a photo for the thumbnail. It must be in my car. But, yeah, we got a voucher, I guess, $5 for, I think it was half a dozen donuts. Inflation, man. At about 30 seconds later, Florent of the Admirals gets a goal, making this, I think, the 3rd time tonight that the Admirals have been ahead in the game, so that's awesome. Always keeping on his toes, but that goal especially was like, oh my god, oh great, cool. Anytime you get the lead in the 3rd period, you're like kind of going like, okay, all right, a little bit of rationality. Getting the lead in the 1st period is a little bit like, okay, anything could happen. 2nd period, anything could happen. 3rd period, you start going, that could be the last goal of the game. It wasn't. Because 6 minutes later, at 9 minutes and 50 seconds, Percy, yes, that Percy, gets a goal, tying up the game 4-4. And now we're all thinking the same thing. We better effing get those donuts, because otherwise they lost the game. And Montgomery of the Admirals heard our prayers, because at 14 minutes and 55 seconds, he gets that donut goal. I mean, the goal to make the Admirals lead. He gets, it's an incredible goal. He basically shoots it like a few feet in front of the blue line, and it's the type of thing where, like, when you're watching it live, you kind of like see him take that shot, and when it goes in, your eyes just go, because I was so like, whoa, okay, I did not expect that to come out of freaking nowhere. Thanks, Montgomery. It was great. It was a great goal, and yeah, and finally we were thinking, okay, all right, it's 4-5. Please. You only got 5 minutes left. But 2 minutes later, or a little less than 2 minutes later, Welsh of the Railers gets a goal, making the game 5-5, tying the game. 2 minutes later, at 18:40, there was a hard stop by John Nuzzi, and now I'm thinking, all right, you got 1 minute and 20 seconds left. We're going to overtime, and we did. It's kind of interesting in the ECHL. By the way, this is the first time this season that the Admirals are going to overtime. So I'm like, okay, I don't remember how the ECHL works with overtimes. Apparently, they get 7 minutes in the overtime to see which team gets the first goal. It was... and then after those 7 minutes, if nobody gets a goal, then it goes to a shootout, which I don't like shootouts. And also, the Norfolk Admirals, going into overtime in general is not very good for the Norfolk Admirals, because they rely very heavily on their defensemen. And I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the 3 players that each team are allowed to have on the ice have to are shooters, not defenders. I might be wrong about that, but in general, it's not good, and it showed because 40 seconds into the overtime, the goal 40 seconds into the overtime is scored by Rapasi. meaning that the Admirals get 1 point for the game, and obviously the Railers get 2 points because they won. And I'm pretty sure with the ECHL, regulation wins is not how they calculate, is not part of the calculus, so it doesn't, like, the Railers might as well have won the game in regulation time for as much good as it did them. Like, it basically doesn't affect them. It does help the Admirals that we lost in overtime, but it's still not great to lose in overtime. I don't love that. Going into the game, Norfolk was 7th in the league with a 3-2 record, and going into it, the Railers were 18th in the league with a 2-3 record. Now it would be 3-1 for the Norfolk Admirals, and I think that would be 3-3 for the Railers. So the Railers, I think that means... No, Norfolk would still be ahead because they'd have, instead of 6 points, they would have 7 points tonight, and the Railers would have only 6 points. But it's not awesome. Sunday's game is going to be against the Railers, so we've won a game, we've lost a game. Let's see. let's make sure on Sunday that we are keeping our head above water, that we're not losing our crap, and yeah, pretty exciting night. Anyways, that's about all that I really wanted to say tonight, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.